Okay, this is really bad for a lot of developers. For some reason, some of them seem to be liking this right now, but for the majority of them, this is pretty bad because Roblox just released a new update for upcoming icon and thumbnail translation experiment, which initially sounds great because they are opening up Roblox and the platform and all of these different games to a bunch of different people that might not speak English. Like, they will be able to automatically translate all of these games into so many different languages and allow those people to play these games. The problem with this part of the update is the fact that developers do not have a choice. They are forced to automatically opt into this. They can later decide that they don't want their games to be in this, but they have to manually check that option. And the real problem comes in when you realize that this update is using AI to automatically change the icons and the thumbnails and sometimes even the titles of these games. Like I said, whether or not the developer wants that to happen, the AI is going to do that regardless. They are going to change the icon, change the thumbnail, and in a lot of cases it ends up being so unbelievably wrong that it just makes the game look bad. So basically for the next 2 weeks you might see AI generated translations for game icons and thumbnails. Right off the bat, just from first glance of looking at this, you might not think that there is anything wrong with this, but looking at these side by side, you can start to notice more and more little mistakes that the AI has clearly made. First of all, this little guy in the back is supposed to be some kind of a lion bee. What on earth is that supposed to be on the equivalent of the AI generated version? I have no idea, but it definitely does not look the same. And then second of all, the main thing that we are taking a look at is the translated text in the thumbnail. Simulator doesn't look that bad. I lied, it looks absolutely terrible. Why did it change the font that drastically? The main title of that text apparently does not say bee swarm, but actually says bee and hot. So this translation failed. It read warm instead of swarm. So the AI took this, saw bee warm, and then translated it into bee and hot. So it's no longer Bee Swarm Simulator in this language thanks to the AI, courtesy of this new wonderful AI generated update. It's now Bee and Hot Simulator. You might think, okay, that's probably a one-off, which first of all, how do they get bee warm from this? Are they not seeing the massive giant S in front of the word? But it's also just not a one-off because in the replies to the developer forum announcement, I could find a bunch of different developers posting their own games being absolutely butchered by this new AI generated update. Firstly, this one said, "I did not consent to having my game icon mangled by AI." Again, this is an automatic update. Whether or not the developers give permission or consent for this to happen to their own games, their icons, their thumbnails, it doesn't matter. Roblox is doing this regardless. And the only way that you can stop this happening to your game is to manually go into the settings and opt out of this happening to each individual game. Like, that's the only way that you can stop this from happening, apparently after it's already happened. So far, none of the translations for this game are accurate. Original text is Fractured Franchise, and there is 4 different translated versions in this post. The first one is coming up as Polish and translates into Perfect Franchise. Once again, the original game is Fractured Franchise. You can see it there in the icon of the game, and that is what the AI is translating, not from the title or anything like that. The AI is supposed to detect the text in these icons and thumbnails and then translate it and write their own version of the text onto the thumbnail. The second one is coming up as Indonesian, and this one says play break. How did we? At least the first one still said franchise in it. The next one is German. This one is blocked franchise. I mean, these are all going through Google Translate, so they might be a little incorrect, but still, how do we get here from fractured franchise? And the final one is coming up as French, saying smashes franchise. Again, I mean, at least most of them say franchise. I'm not too sure what was going on with the second one coming up as play break. None of it makes sense. So like, people who actually speak these languages are going to come across these translated versions of the game, see that they are called things like play break, blocked franchise, smashes franchise, and then just decide not to play the game, because what kind of terrible names for a game is that supposed to be? Nobody is going to play that because that's not the name of the game. And then just to make things a little bit worse, if the AI translations being horribly wrong wasn't already terrible enough, a lot of these games are also being given these terrible, unreadable, basically, AI fonts. Like if you see these fonts outside of literally anywhere, you are going to immediately clock onto this as being AI generated text, because that is exactly what these fonts look like. And again, a lot of them are just becoming so unreadable that people are gonna see these games and decide not to play them because they either cannot even make out what they are trying to say, or it's turning the title of the game into something so incorrect that it's just not appealing to play anymore. So in turn, I mean, it's kind of like Roblox is just ruining a lot of these games because they are changing the icons, changing the thumbnails, or not even Roblox themselves. They are letting AI do that. Again, whether or not the developer wants that to happen to their game, they don't really have a choice. They just have to sit back, let this happen, let their games be automatically translated, which wouldn't have been a bad update. That would have been one of the best updates if it wasn't so bad. The translations are incorrect probably 95% of the time, and then sometimes when they do end up being correct, the text becomes so unreadable because it was generated by AI. So Roblox also says, our translation system is trained to ensure that the translated image matches the font style of the original image as closely as possible. This means the size, font, and color of translated text will remain very similar to the original text, and any non-text elements in the image will remain exactly the same. We already know that that is not true. That is not the case. Yes, they say that it will be as close as possible. It will remain very similar. They do not say that the text will remain exactly the same, which is very obvious. That is so very clear. A lot of the time it becomes unreadable, a completely different font. But to say that the rest of the image, non-text, will remain exactly the same is also not true. And using the bee swarm simulator one as a very good example, because what on earth is going on to the bees in the background? Some of them have even completely disappeared. So I don't know if they're gonna keep this going or if they can somehow improve it, but I feel like with AI, no matter how much you try to improve something like this, it's always gonna mess up in the end. They do say at the end, can I edit what has been auto-translated? And they say not during the experiment. So possibly that might mean that when this is fully released, or when they try improving this, when it's no longer just an experiment, that might mean that developers will have the ability to edit or just like completely change the translation, because like I said, a lot of the time it's ending up being very wrong. It's actually changing the image of the game icon or the thumbnail, even though they just mentioned that it wouldn't do that. But equally as confusing, they say, why do I need to fill out a form to disable this? So like even during the experiment, even before this is released and a real feature, developers actually have to fill out a form to be removed from the experiment. Like they have no choice, and the only thing that they can do is put in effort into filling out a form to not be included in the experiment. Otherwise their games will just be, like that one person mentioned, mangled by the AI. So please, the comments is the place to go. Tell me what you guys think about Roblox ruining these games with AI generated translations. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.